What makes a song a smash? Talent, luck, timing, all that and more. On Hit Parade from Slate, host Chris Molanphy tells tales from a half-century of chart history. Through storytelling, trivia, and song snippets, Chris dissects how the artists you love, or hate, dominated the airwaves and shaped your memories forever. He's explained how Taylor Swift pivoted from country to pop, how The Cure got UK goth rock onto US radio, and how a young Stevie Wonder improvised his way to a Billboard chart topper. Subscribe to Hit Parade for tales of the hits from coast to coast, wherever you are listening right now. Can you tell us about your name, Sancha?
Yes.
And what it means and why you chose it.
So Sancha, as one word, means mistress.
But her artist name is two words, Sancha.
I separated it because I wanted it to be like a saint, like San Francisco. And I wrote the name down and it was just something that like struck me. Because if you call someone a Sancha, it's basically like calling her a puta or something. It's really derogatory. And I was like, I wouldn't call myself that. And then also thinking about how like the role that saints play, and especially in Mexico, like sometimes people go to them for very specific things. Like, this is the saint that helps us cross the border. That's the one by my mom's town. You know, like you go to them for something.
Right.
With the name Sancha, it was like people would come to me for something.
And what would they come to you for?
For the drama.
Hey! Yes, the drama. Let me tell you what I mean by that. On stage, Sancha is a revelation in rhinestones, fur, and feathers, with plenty of dewy blue eyeshadow to boot. Her roots as a San Francisco drag queen show up in this bountiful costuming. And then, underneath it all, Sancha's love of Ranchera, in its full complexity, shines through. My name is Meklit, and this is Movement, Music and Migration Remixed.
My parents are both like from rural Mexico. Like they don't have an education further than like 6th grade. But then they did all their sacraments, like they're baptized, they're confirmed, they did their first communion, they got married. So the catechism is there, you know, like, so they're taught by the church. And rancheras really affirm those beliefs, like of monogamy, of like the way your family's supposed to be, the way you're supposed to love with your entire heart, or else you die, you know, like that person is for you and they belong to you forever. And if you don't have them, your life is miserable, you know?
El día que te encontré, me enamoré. Tú sabes que yo nunca lo he negado.
And having like lived a different life in San Francisco and being queer and not identifying with that made it scary to go back into those tropes, you know?
Por tu bendito amor.
So I was wondering if you could tell us about your auntie's farm and your rediscovery of Ranchera.
So the farm is the farm that my mom grew up on with her 12 siblings. So it's my grandparents' farm. And this aunt that's there, my tia Luz, is the only one that didn't get married in the family. And so she worked the farm the longest. Out of 12 kids, there were 7 girls. The men, as soon as they were 16, wanted to come to the U.S. to make money. So that left the women at home to do the men's jobs. The farm had like 25 cows. So that was a twice a day kind of thing. So it was at 5 a.m. they had to milk them, and at 3 p.m. And so my mom said that like half of them would do the house chores, and then the other half would do all the men's chores, and then they would switch, you know?
So everyone could do everything.
Yeah, everyone could do everything. So I started going to Mexico when I was 2. I think my mom was undocumented for the first, like, until I was like 6 or something. So we'd go every 2 years, and she'd come back on her own.
Wow.
During those times and leave us with an aunt or something. So yeah, so the farm, I remember the bath being like a room with a big rock on it that you'd sit on, and you'd have to heat up water and stuff like that. And there's like the oldest room in the house is made out of adobe. And so it's always like, oh, where's this thing? They're like, el cuarto de adobe, you know, the adobe room. And it used to have like one of those old ovens that you had to fire with like wood. And my aunt was like, I don't want that anymore. Like, it's too much of a mess. And sometimes like I'll go to like one of these fancy pizza spots with the oven, and I like, it's that same smell.
Sometimes I think like, how far back do any of us have to go before you reach the farmers? You know,
Right?
it's like, it's not that long for anybody.
Not that long,
you know.
Uh-huh.
So you started going to the farm when you were 2,
Yeah.
and you returned a few years ago in a kind of transformational way.
Yeah. It was going to be my 27th birthday. And at that time, I think I was getting tired of working so much in the Bay and not having anything to eat. You know, like it was a lot of work for nothing. And I was like, I don't see how this would get better. I just want to do music, you know? And I was like, it's about to be my Saturn return, and I need a change. And my mom at one point, like a couple months before that, had joked that I should just go keep my aunt company on the farm because she was by herself. And I was like, oh, you just want me to be reformed and like, you know. And
Reformed?
I was like, no.
What is reformed?
Yeah, like, because I was basically a drunk drag queen. So she was like, when are you going to get better and not be so crazy? And so she thought she could send me to basically a reform school with my aunt. And then I was like, actually, that's not a bad idea. That would be like a writing retreat or something.
Right.
And when I was into the idea, she was not into it anymore.
What? What? She flipped? She changed?
She flipped.
Why?
All of a sudden, Mexico was dangerous, and
well, that's interesting.
But at that point, I was like, oh, that's not a bad idea. I should go to my aunt. And my friend actually bought me my plane ticket, so I like went to Mexico City for a couple days, partied because it was my 27th birthday, and then I took a bus from there to my aunt's farm. It's like a 9-hour bus ride.
Woo.
Yeah. And then the first kind of month was really hard because my aunt, like, they're still really religious. And at that time, it was like September, and they take the town's Virgen, and they take like this doll in like a glass case, and they take her to all the different farms. So my aunt was following her around to the different farms and praying like 3 rosaries a night, having mass on each farm.
Wow.
And at that time, when I got there, I had like lavender hair. I had no eyebrows, and I still had all my clothes that I wore as a little club kid in San Francisco.
So you stood out a little bit.
Big old platform shoes. And my aunt would say things like, you know, that kind of insinuated that I was in a bad place, or, you know, things like that. So I had such a rough time in the beginning with her. because she never left the town. So she has these ideas of like how things are supposed to be and doesn't actually have experience with like dating anybody even, like
Wow.
she's lived a very sheltered life. So she didn't know what I was, like didn't understand me. But then we also have always had like a really good relationship. So at a certain point, like it just like shifted to where we could talk about things. Like we'd sit and have coffee at lunch, and then like we'd come out understanding each other a lot more.
What changed? What do you think that shift was between the kind of distance between you and the coming together?
I don't know. It started happening just naturally. Like, and I think that she was appreciating the fact that I would help her around the house, and we'd come together for telenovelas and, mutual things that we liked together.
Yes.
And then we would talk about really honestly about things, like maybe even more honestly than I would talk to my mom. Like people calling me a witch or saying that I was crazy, and I'd be like, you're here and you see me every single day, like what kind of brujerias do you think that I'm doing?
Right. Right.
And I found more acceptance with her than I have found with queer communities.
Wow.
At times, and so like people are ignorant no matter what, and my aunt really helped me see that even though she's sheltered and has lived a different life, I could find acceptance with her and understanding.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And how did rancheras figure into that? Was that part of the telenovelas and the things that you could share with each other?
It wasn't. It was like I went there to write these songs that I had before. I had Logic on my computer, had this microphone, and my aunt would hear these songs as I was working on them, and she'd be like, you came here with like torn clothes. You don't have any money. You're sad. Obviously, whatever you were doing is not working out.
Don't hold back,
'Cause you're
Auntie.
here.
Don't hold back.
Yeah, right? Don't hold back. And she was like, you should start singing rancheras. Like, and I was like, no, I've never been able to sing rancheras. Like, I didn't think that I had the capability, like the vocal capability, And I was like, watch, I'll show you. I can't do this, but I'll show you. Took her iPod with the little circle and was looking through songs, and then she would listen to the radio every day, and I heard Pedro Infante doing Historia de un Amor, and I was like, oh, this song is gorgeous.
Ya no estoy más a tu lado.
So I just was like picking songs, and then she also gave me requests like, do this song, it makes me think of your grandparents. And I was like, I'm gonna record it all for you. And I had a CD burner. Es la historia de un amor como no hay otro igual que me hizo. And I did that for her, and as soon as I did that, she started trading it around. Like, oh, the priest wants a CD. Oh, your uncles in the US want a CD. And then when people would come over, she'd be like, where's the guitar? Bring the guitar. And I was like, oh, I guess I could do this convincingly. And while I was doing it, I was like, let me like remake these little trumpet sounds with synthesizers and whatever I have with me. I think that was my moment of like seeing the darkness, like where I come from, like all the repression, like that's the birthplace of it, of all the things I'm afraid of, all the things I'm taught I'm supposed to be. And the rancheras kind of represent that too, but then I could do it in a way that's mine. In reality, like, even if we're queer, like, you still feel that love that's so intense that, like, you're gonna die if you don't have it, like, or when you're heartbroken, you think you're just gonna absolutely like drop dead. So it's like it's all the same feelings, and they all come from the same place, and we're more alike than we want to think, you know.
So how did you end up coming back to the US?
Well, my mom went to Mexico, and she really convinced me. She was like, you need to come back and stop ignoring the things that you're running away from. And specifically taxes. Like the reality started seeping in that even on the farm and in the town, like to send songs to people and share things would take days.
Oh, uploads and like Wi-Fi speeds and stuff. Yeah.
And at one point I had this fantasy that I would just stay on the farm and teach kids music and, you know, like things that they're not me, you know,
Right.
but I had that little fantasy. And then the reality started seeping in that I wasn't going to be happy doing that, you know, and that I really wanted my music to travel. And I was like, oh, I do need to come back. And I had friends living in LA, and they were like, we'll make it really easy for you. And it was just, I never thought about moving to LA, but since they made it really easy for me, I was like, okay, I'll try this out. And it became home like instantly.
Really?
Yeah.
Say more about that. What was it that made it home?
It was just like everything. Like I felt like in the Bay, nobody understood the intersectionality of all the things that I was doing. And in LA, it's like, oh, bitch, we've been doing this for years. Decades. Girl, welcome home.
I love that.
Oh, you mean punk and cumbia? Like, that shit's been done. So it was really refreshing. ¿Qué más quieres de mí, cariño? So when my parents started hearing the rancheras, they cried.
Really?
Yeah. But they also
because they felt what? What were they tears of?
I think like, oh, maybe she does have something, and we've just been ignoring it, you know? And I even had this moment where I did a music festival in San Jose, and my parents went to see me for the first time. And at that time I had like 9 bandmates or something, and they all went with me. I got an Airbnb for half of them, and half of them stayed with my parents. And my mom made food that night, and she stayed up till 4 a.m. with us, and we were all just singing rancheras the whole time, boleros, like songs that they knew. They'd request songs, and we'd just like play the chords for them, and they would sing, and like it became this like big melting pot of like cultures and worlds, because it's all like my bandmates were all queer and super gay and like trans, and you know, my parents being from this very traditional background, like experiencing joy with all of us, you know? And, you know, sometimes like with the rancheras, I'll add the screaming, I'll add like the high drama and things like that. But, you know, when I'm at my parents' house, I'm at my parents' house, and it's for them, you know? It doesn't become a performance for me. It's like, this is for you guys. This is my gift to you guys. Like, I might not be everything that you wanted me to be, but I understand you, you know, and I understand your needs, and I also understand that I'm something that you never would have imagined, you know. And I feel like that was probably the moment where my parents were like, oh, she's not gonna stop. This is her thing. that she's going to keep pursuing forever. There's a song I released that I actually wrote on the farm. So it was a demo for a long time. And I had named it Hijo Pródigo, the prodigal son. Then when I started sending it out to people, they started calling it Oveja Negra, which is black sheep. No soy el hijo que quisieras presumir. The song is about like being on the farm and knowing that I always cry that like I'm not what my mother would have wanted, and acknowledging that like my mom prays every day that I'd be good and be okay, even when I've been in places that are really dark. And feeling like when I went to the farm, I was the prodigal son, like I came back to them. And how much they celebrate me now. So the song is about returning to them, but returning as myself. Que a tu hija se le quite
You can find all of Sancha's music and projects at churchofsancha.com. Movement is produced by Ian Koss and myself, Meklit Hadero. Our co-creator and podcast godmother is Julie Kane. We are supported by the Mellon Foundation, the National Geographic Society, and distributed by PRX.
Again.